When you think of a director who is a single auteur, someone with very distinct themes and styles throughout their work, you'll probably think of someone like Wes Anderson, Alfred Hitchcock, Quentin Tarantino. But to me, the ultimate auteur is Yasujirō Ozu. When you see an Ozu film, you know it's an Ozu film. His signature low-angle cinematography, in which the camera hardly moves, and when it does, it's once or twice in the film. His characters, who very much conform to social obligations at the time, not to mention how his characters often stop and admire what a beautiful day it is. Just breathe it in and smell the roses. Tokyo Story is often considered his most famous film, seeing how it is often regarded as one of the best films ever made. But to me, Late Spring is his best film, and one of my favourite films of all time. But a year before, in 1948, he made a film that seems to have been forgotten, that many people don't talk about, A Hen in the Wind. Japan was under American occupation from 1945 to 52, and filmmakers had a few rules they had to follow. So they couldn't mention Nagasaki, Hiroshima, or even show other aspects of the war. Also couldn't mention or show the occupation. Ozu did hint at it in different ways. I see you, Coca-Cola sign in Late Spring, but A Hen in the Wind is the most overt he has been about this, simply because the film really shows the consequences and the harsh reality of Japan losing the war. The film is about a mother who resorts to one night of prostitution to pay for her son's medical bills. Her husband comes back after 4 years away due to the war. She tells him, and he spends the rest of the film trying to come to terms with it and to eventually forgive her. Ozu wastes no time showing the poverty and desperation of the characters, starting with the mother wanting to sell her kimono since they have no money. You could see the kimono as a symbol of national identity, and here she is trying to sell that. It's as if under occupation, Japanese identity is being sold. Her and the neighbor also have a conversation about how the food prices have gone up so much. In Ozu's films, he frequently shows eating and drinking, a form of bonding and happiness. None of that here, just to emphasize how scarce food is. Also in the scenery and the sets, the house and the streets are so messy. Ozu frequently cuts to just burnt out and rusty buildings, plus debris on the streets. In his films, he usually has scenes of people cleaning. He loves showing those, since Japanese people are known for their cleanliness. None of that here, as if to say Japan has given up and lost their identity. It's a real harsh and striking reminder of the poverty post-war. In his follow-up film to this, Late Spring, you got none of the poverty. Everything looks clean and just like a fantasy wonderland in comparison. Her prostituting herself is also a reminder of that, since she is desperate for money and has no other choice. Ozu really loves having important plot events happen off-screen, and then we hear characters talking about said events. In this, we never see her go to the place or being with the client. We hear about it from him, and then over the course of the film, she describes to her husband what happened. It's sort of a cold detachment from her and us, the audience, to not see the act or meeting itself. So the husband, he doesn't take any of this well, and the latter half of the film is him trying to deal with it by abusing his wife, and it's even implied he rapes her. Yeah, you wouldn't really associate this content with an Ozu film. Where's the single late-20s daughter getting pressured into marriage? A motif is featured throughout the film of the stairs that lead to their apartment, showing her going up and down them. Also, Ozu just cuts to them sometimes. When the husband throws a can at her, Ozu emphasizes showing it falling down the stairs. This foreshadows the climax, I guess you could call it that, when the husband pushes her down the stairs. Doing this sort of snaps him out of it, and he forgives her, and they are going to move on. The film justifies her prostituting herself. The husband's reaction is sort of justified, but not the abuse, showing that spousal abuse is necessary in the path to forgiveness, which I don't like. But if you look at it as the wife represents Japan, then Ozu is saying this post-war suffering and abuse is justified. Supposedly, this scene was actually inspired by Gone with the Wind. As Jonathan Rosenbaum points out, Hasumer conjectures that this may have been inspired by Scarlett O'Hara's fall down the stairs in Gone with the Wind, a film Ozu saw in Singapore during the war when he was viewing Hollywood films on virtually a daily basis. And Ozu was known to be a huge admirer and fan of Hollywood films, with Citizen Kane allegedly being his favourite film. I find it funny how the man Nariko is meant to marry in late spring we never see, but he's described by her friend as looking like Gary Cooper.
ほら、なんとか言ったっけ、アメリカの。この間来た野球映画のさ、あの男。ゲリー・クーパー？そうそう、クーパーか。あの男に似てるの。口元なんかそっくりよ。
So Ozu doesn't want us to think of a Japanese man, but of Gary Cooper. You'll notice in the background of his films Hollywood film posters. Here they are in A Hen in the Wind. He's considered by critics to be the most Japanese filmmaker. I disagree with that notion when there is clear admiration and inspiration from Hollywood in his films. A Hen in the Wind wasn't very well received when it came out. Even Ozu admitted to not liking the film, saying, "Well, everyone has his failures. There are all kinds of failures, however, and some of my failures I like." This film is a bad failure. I believe it's because the film hits too close to home, and the Japanese public weren't ready for that. They wanted the more dreamlike state of late spring, which doesn't show any of the abject poverty. Looking at it today, I believe the film was ahead of its time for really dwelling on the consequences the war had on Japan, something audiences then weren't ready for. The film ends with the husband saying it was a mistake. Let's forget it ever happened. Well, Ozu and Japan certainly did.
おばさんはゲリー・クーパーに似てるって言うんだけど。じゃあすごいじゃないの。あんた昔からクーパー好きじゃないの。